Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the wrestling podcast, Getting Over. All the wrestling boys are in, and it's still socially distanced, but that doesn't stop us from getting down to the nitty-gritty. We've got a new pay-per-view coming this weekend, and I'm sure you want to know who won the overall pay-per-view title from the last two pay-per-views. And I'm sure you want to know what we're predicting for this upcoming pay-per-view. It's jam-packed to say the least. So yeah. There is video. We're still using the magic of video for a socially distanced podcast. So if you haven't checked us out on YouTube, please do. While you're there, do subscribe. Helps the channel and helps the podcast, and it helps us. And you're helpful. So yeah, there's that. So here we go. This is CookieCast, Getting Over.
Alright, good evening everyone. Welcome along. It is time for Getting Over on CookieCast. We're here with the usual suspects. We've got Mr. Williams, Mr. Moore, and of course, Mr. Cook. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So it's been a little while, hasn't it, since we've had a wrestling pod to do. We've guested on a couple in between, but it's been a while since we've actually got to talk about some wrestling and more importantly, some of those predictions that we made. So. Let's start there, shall we? So, cast your mind back. It was Backlash last time we were here to talk about all the wondrous goings on, and obviously the greatest wrestling match ever of all time in the entire universe. But for the regulars, you might remember with the predictions title for us guys, we didn't actually have a clear winner from the time before in your house. So we said we'd roll the scores over. Myself and Paul were drawing at the time for the lead, and obviously it gave Andy and Matt a chance to catch up a little bit. So, can anybody remember what they predicted from that far back, or does anybody have any idea how they've done?
No.
Well, Mr. Cook was very, very kindly looking after that, I think, for Mr. Moore at the time, because I seem to recall Matt was champion last time around.
Which from my perspective, means that it should go like this, but I'm guessing it's backwards, so it should go this. I can never work it out. This is maths.
Well, we've rolled the scores over. I've combined them, but after Backlash, both Andy and Matt added a further 4 points to their score, giving them 6 and 7 respectively. Paul added another 4 points to his score, so it gave him 8 points total. But to put you out of your misery, I managed to pull out a 5, so we put my total on 9. So for the first time in a very long time, not the first time ever, can't rattle that one off. But I will gladly accept that championship title from you, Mr. Cook. So if you would like to drop it down for me, that would be incredible. I will reach up there, and it should just be. Oh look, it seems to have grown in size somewhat. Never mind. Thought I'd drag that one out to
oh, very what was good. Coming, so very good.
I will take that.
Wait,
one. So, yeah,
that one you put on your shoulder seems to say something about Intercontinental Championship, and I don't think that's what we were fighting for, Stu. So,
no, you need to get your specs sorted, mate. It's definitely the CookieCast presents.
Right.
Getting over pay-per-view predictions title. There it is. Although inconsiderately, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins seem to have written their name on it as well. But yeah, cheers. So yeah,
can't keep anything nice, can you, these days?
So yeah, that's not happened for me for quite some time now. So I was quite chuffed when them results came through. I got out of the possible 7 points that we had up for grabs, I got 2 wrong because I said that Asuka would win the women's title match, as we all did. However, that was a double count out, so everybody got stuffed on points for that one. And I got sucked into the whole Lashley might get given the title maybe business, and lost points on that. So between us, because of the Asuka thing, we wouldn't have even had a full set of results all the way through. So there's a bit of a mess on this time.
I always go for a nonsense result. Why not this time?
Andy was closest because I have in brackets possible disqualification, but still Asuka to win. So it was like you can maybe squeak half a point for that, maybe. I'll keep all of the hardware, so that's fine. Hence why I'm so generous with the half a point.
Yeah, generous. Yeah.
So it's been a few weeks as well. Does anyone remember much about Backlash by this point? Have anybody got anything to say about it?
Edge got injured.
Yeah. Exactly. So the greatest wrestling match ever of all time in the universe. Actually, despite the concerns, wasn't that bad. I quite enjoyed it. It was different. It was good. Again, it was. I don't know if you can class it as the cinematic thing because it was still technically in ring, but they definitely used plenty of effects this time around. Like they pumped in crowd noises and sort of audio from like times gone by, and I thought even from the ring introductions was quite a nice touch because the lights dimmed and the old Madison Square Garden microphone dropped from the ceiling, and they even used Howard Finkel's voice to announce both of the wrestlers. So I thought that was quite a nice little touch. Actual wrestling as well, not just. I mean, obviously you're not going to get flips with Randy Orton because boy loves a flip, but they kind of seem to use moves out of their movesets from like their entire career rather than just kind of like the recent highlights, if you see what I mean. So I thought it was quite good, that match. The unfortunate thing is I don't think much else from Backlash was particularly worth a mention for my liking. Nothing particularly memorable. Definitely no title changes, but moreover just really questionable booking decisions. We mentioned the double count out earlier on. If they're going to leave it with Asuka, why not? And they've done nothing with Nia Jax since either, I might add. Why not let Asuka have the win? Like, give her the steam still. Didn't understand that. Still don't think Braun needed to defend it in a handicap match. It was just ridiculous because neither of them two have done anything since either in Miz and Morrison. Just very, very odd. But in recent memory, I don't think I can remember anything that I have disliked as much as this whole Street Profits Viking Raiders absolute horseshit that ended up. It was supposed to be a tag title match, and it ended up being some kind of like crap, like B movie almost in a way. In the sense of we got the formation of either the Street Raiders or the Viking Profits or some kind of Power Rangers nonsense. If that's what you want it to be, but just really bad. And then, again, we've only gained since then that Akira Tozawa now has a group of ninjas that follow him around, which, given the current climate in the world, giving a Japanese guy a load of ninjas to follow him around isn't probably the smartest move that they've made in terms of stereotype. So that's just my thoughts on it anyway. So if anyone else has got anything they want to sling in there, then go for it.
I think the problem was it was a pay-per-view of its kind of current conditions, wasn't it? It's like, kind of throwing stuff together with obviously the kind of fact that they're not out on the road, they can't really build things, there's no fan favourites, there's no kind of recognised fan favourites because there are no fans at the moment. So it was just a bit of a placeholder kind of thing, and it's kind of like, I don't know why there's this obsession of keeping it. Well, I've made my feelings about Nia Jax clear several times over. So, but for whatever reason, they're never going to put Oscar over cleanly when they might as well, because build her up to be something decent as opposed to, she's good, but she can't beat Nia Jax. And you think, well, okay, then you might as well have just booked it as a triple threat and somebody else setting the pin, because it's like a schmaltzy finish that kind of I don't know. It just seemed.
it just absolutely smacks of like. And for me, I'm already getting onto like my ready to grumble territory. So it kind of crosses over really. So somebody stick me 30 seconds on the clock. There's there's an example from Raw, but I think it's been coming for a few weeks. You good? Okay, tell me when.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, appreciate they've got a lot of TV to get through, but Jesus Christ, how much filler does there need to be? There was no need for that Asuka Nia Jax match, as we mentioned. And again, on Raw this past week, we've had Angel Garza and Andrade versus the Viking Raiders again. And not only that, they then make it into an elimination match, so it just drags it out. I understand they were trying to make Garza look strong, but Jesus Christ, we do not need to see half an hour of that every single week.
Perfect.
There you go. I haven't practiced that before.
I was just about to say, I'm starting to think you practice these in front of the mirror because you manage to always hit them nail on.
Well, that's why I had the belt out. Obviously, I was just looking at the mirror, cutting a promo just before we came on air tonight. So it's, but yeah, it's starting to grate me, like the amount of unnecessary stuff that they're doing at the moment, and that was just 2 examples of it. So
it just seems rudderless at the moment. You know, obviously they got rid of Bischoff kind of around the New Year time, wasn't it? Or was it just before that?
Yeah, it was a while back now. It feels like a lifetime ago, that one.
And brought Pritchard in, and then they've got rid of Paul Heyman and put Pritchard in charge of that. Then it's just like this kind of. It just seems a little bit rudderless. And then I read something the other day that he's knackered. Well, yeah, you know, one guy doing everything, and unfortunately. There was the report as well that Raw this week had its lowest viewing figures for 27 years. It's obviously working. All these decisions are obviously working. You know, the one brand that's doing all right and actually getting better is the one that they've left alone. You know, and you know, and fair enough, the roster's pretty stable, and they seem to be kind of pretty consistent with that. They've only got 2 hours to fill, but. And obviously they're throwing all the big stuff at NXT at the moment. But Raw and SmackDown just... I mean, do we even want to talk about the karaoke thing on SmackDown on Friday, or is that enough? We've just it, and now we've moved on from it, because that is... It didn't even deserve to get that kind of mention. It's just low rent. It's like shit Attitude Era. And that's the problem, is that in the Attitude Era it would have been something to get people to watch, but you know, no one wants to see karaoke, and then no one wants to see people fighting after karaoke. If you want to do that, just go out with them for a night out. You know, it's just...
that's maybe why they've done it, but that's been few and far between in recent months, hasn't it? There's nostalgia blast from that perspective. I just skipped quite happily over that karaoke segment, so I was not going to talk about. But you did bring up something that I have got on my list for today, which was the Great American Bash theme that NXT carried for the last couple of weeks. I mean, cynically, you could say it was coincidence that it happened to be around the time that AEW had a 2-week pay-per-view event going on as well on the same night of the week. But you know, maybe that was just coincidence. But
Triple H out and said it's not coincidence. They're definitely doing it.
It paid off. It paid off though, didn't it? Because I think NXT edged them both weeks in the ratings, despite having lost to them for numerous weeks beforehand. And there was some quality stuff during Great American Bash fortnight, if you like. The fact that we got a home bird, if you like, going into number 1 contendership, and Tegan Knox winning that fatal 4-way, which wasn't the greatest match in the world. There's a couple of awkward spots, but we finally got her to get her clean win at the ending for over Dakota Kai. So we've got the number 1 contender match. By the time that this podcast airs, actually, she will have had that number 1, the actual title match. So that'll be quite an interesting one. But I mean, you can't really go any further than the main event with that. So they had, for the first time ever, obviously, the North American Championship and the NXT Championship were both on the line in a winner-take-all match between Keith Lee and Adam Cole. And what a solid match that was. Absolutely, invested in it from start to finish. But I suppose the sad part for me as the Undisputed Era fan and the Adam Cole fan is that the record-breaking 403-day title reign as NXT champion is now at an end for Adam Cole, but Keith Lee takes over the reins. But when we were chatting in the week about it, Matt had some thoughts on Keith Lee's finisher, didn't you, Matt?
I just think it's got a very good name, but it's just a power slam. And
it's not just it can't be just a power slam when it's called the Big Bang Catastrophe. That has all sorts of chaos written all over it, surely.
No, it's missing all the chaos. Because what's Braun Strowman's power slam? Because that's the problem.
He runs a little bit first, doesn't he? His is straight out of the Bulldogs' playbook.
I just thought, for somebody as talented and as athletic as Keith Lee, a slightly fancy power slam doesn't seem to kind of warrant, being, oh, look at this magnificent, you don't get out, you don't kick out of the, you don't kick out of that. And you thought, I was just like, there's better things than, they must be able to come up with something for it. When a guy does a moonsault off the middle rope.
I was just about to say that moonsault from the second rope was insane for a guy his size. There was a small part of me that was like, as soon as he left that middle rope, I was like, he's not going. Oh no, he's fine. He's absolutely fine. Did you see has everybody seen the towards the end of that match, the clothesline that Adam Cole took, leading into the, oh my god, talk about landing high in your neck. Jesus, he tried to do that whole the whole inside out thing, and he got 80% of the way around, and then just absolutely planted on his neck and his shoulder. Oh man, it looked rough. That would have been a bit of a painful one, I think. But yeah, it was a great match, and the whole, I still can't. Part of me can't believe that Cole managed to get Keith Lee with the I always get the name of this wrong. The sunrise
Panama
thing.
City Sunrise.
There we go. I always want to call
Sunrise.
Yeah, geez, just to get round for that whole thing again. But props to Keith Lee for being part of that as well. Other stuff that's come out since we were last on air. The WWE have announced that there is an extra bonus episode for The Last Ride. We talked about that last time. So this Sunday, following the pay-per-view, we're going to get an episode entitled Tales from the Dead Man. So whether that's just going to be just him talking road stories or what it's going to be, but if it's half as good as the rest of the series has been, it'll be definitely worth checking out. This past week also as well, they've put out a lot of stuff about it, marking 5 years since the beginning of the Four Horsewomen stable in Becky, Sasha, Bayley and Charlotte. Now that they're not necessarily in and amongst it as much, do we think that the women's division are sort of better off now than they were 5 years ago? Obviously I would say yes to that, but are they really better off than they were at the peak of the women's evolution right now, do we think?
They're probably all more on an even footing than they were 5 years ago, because it was, back then it was quite clear. It was basically them four, and then you could make an argument for Nikki Bella. I think AJ was still there for about 5 minutes or something when it first got started.
Well, she's pretty much gone, hasn't she, by the time that it was...
Yeah. But yeah, you'd certainly make the argument that they're all more... You're going to get better matches out of the majority of the women's divisions across the board now, because they've put more time into developing the women's field. So whereas before, you could maybe get however many different combinations out of that four, 5 if you include Nikki Bella, I suppose, for decent matches. Not Natalia as well. I forgot about Natalia. And now you've got 20 to 30 that are capable of good, competent matches, more or less all the time. So
I think it was. I think it was actually in the commentary on NXT this past week about. They seem to, NXT particularly has a bit of an embarrassment of riches in terms of the women's performers that they've got. But for me, the main roster for the last sort of 6 months prior to WrestleMania has probably felt a little bit like it had gone a bit stale again, with heading back towards those same 4. But since WrestleMania, we've had a few different developments in the sense of, we talked about obviously Becky's pregnancy announcement. The fact that, and I'll get to this in a minute, but Charlotte's now out for a little while as well. They've been forced to actually bring people back in again. In the last couple of weeks, we've had like the return of the Iconics back to the kind of the tag title scene. Ruby Riot's come back from her injury. Bianca Belair turned up again this week on Raw after being just off TV since WrestleMania really. And then obviously the big news was Shayna Baszler coming back, and it looked like she was going to kind of beat up R-Truth and Akira Tozawa, but then ended up just picking on the Ninjas instead. But cut a fairly hefty promo on her intentions, so she's been sort of slingshot back up to the title picture fairly quickly, I should think, based on that. And on the back of all this as well, rumours that there may be Evolution 2 in the works as a the special on whether it's a pay-per-view or whether it's just a special on the network. But that kind of, to me, reinforces slightly maybe that they are kind of thinking, we let it slip a bit, we need to get a bit more emphasis back on it, because if anything, in the last month of TV, probably Bayley and Sasha have actually carried it, and then elevated the people they've been working with as well, in the sense of Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss and the Kabuki Warriors again and all that. So
I would say in WWE at the moment, the women characters are probably more interesting than some of the male characters.
Yep.
You know, and that'd go kind of, NXT has got a lot of, you've got obviously Candice LeRae and all that kind of side of things, and Dakota Kai and kind of Rachel Gonzalez and
Mia Yim and everyone as well, yeah.
What?
Mia Yim as well. Mia Yim's one that interests me. Like, I think she's quite a cool character.
They obviously bought that back. Was it Martinez?
Mercedes Martinez. Yeah.
And then on top of that, like you said, you've got like ones that have kind of on the SmackDown and Raw roster that kind of faded into the kind of thing, like what's her face, Lacey Evans and that kind of thing. So people that were having a real kind of big push at the start of the year that then kind of faded away again. And it just seems, it's like, we did the Evolution thing. You thought, all right, great, this is going to be a year in, year out kind of thing where they've got like not to kind of be condescending. It's not meant to be kind of like the women's WrestleMania, because obviously the women have matches on WrestleMania, but the kind of card where they're shown, they're not just the token match here and there. And I still think at times when you sat there and you're watching another version of Miz TV that's exactly the same as last week or something like that, and there's just one women's match in 3 hours or one women's match in 2 hours, and you think, well, I'm going to really, because you were telling us that there's loads of talent and women's wrestling's the best it's ever been, but it's still only worth one match or 2 matches a week. You know what I mean? And I think it's, but then kind of say, I was about to say, they don't put them in hokey shit like they used to, and then they do the karaoke thing. So it's like, it just, it just goes back to. It goes back to the writing again, and it'd be interesting to see what's going on at the moment, because it's very Vincey at the moment, would be my kind of my criticism.
That was it. It was a bit like that before they brought Heyman in. So they bring Heyman in, and he starts to try to push new people, it feels, and then they get rid of Heyman because then they're not happy with that, and now it's gone back to how it was before, but then they pull that rating that you mentioned before, and it's like they're like, you can't keep going back to the same thing that was. It's the old definition of insanity business about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, isn't it? But you touched on Lacey Evans there as well, and I'm pretty sure was it not like around this time last year when it was the whole her in the title picture in that sort of joint intergender tag match that was for both the men's and the women's titles. Was that in the main event of Extreme Rules?
I think so, because I can't even think who it was against. It was someone against Seth, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, it was Corbin, wasn't it? Corbin versus Seth.
Yeah, you see, his name had obviously been erased from my mind for obvious reasons if you're a regular listener. But like to see how far she's kind of gone backwards, like in a year in that sense. If she ends up being one of those people that almost, you don't want to say it, but almost sort of doing a Piper in the sense of being so close to the top title and then never getting it. It'd be a shame if she didn't, because I think she was a hot prospect coming in, and I think she seems to have worked hard to keep at it. But I don't know what she's done to upset people. But for me, she's like prime title material, I would say.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Charlotte a little bit earlier. She is going to be taking some time away from WWE. It's been announced via her on her own Twitter this week that it's for corrective surgery. So probably be two reasons you're thinking for the surgery, and those two reasons would be right. But she's previously had silicone poisoning from implants, which she has confirmed this time it's not. But last time around, took the quicker option back to the ring because she just wanted to get back on with it, and is kind of paying the price for that now. So while she definitely said she hasn't got the poisoning this time around, she is taking the option that'll solve issues from the previous surgery, but it is going to, it's going to solve that long term, and it's going to keep her out of action longer than she would have liked. So I guess get well soon, because as much as people might complain about her, she has left a big hole in that division. And
when you said two options, I was like, book a new album. Those not the two options. Book tour,
no.
releasing a new album. Huh?
Come on, you know those two reasons. Don't be a tit about it. So, so she, for me, if you watch if you've been watching SmackDown up until the point that she left, then any show because she was on it, they've taken one character out of it in her and just replaced it with two in Bayley and Sasha, because they seem to have taken up the mantle she left. So for anybody saying that they don't like Charlotte, she's forced down our throat, well, just remember it's now taking two women to do her job. So I'd argue that point with anybody, to be honest. You can't say she's underrated because she gets all the opportunities, and we've talked about her being pushed down people's throats before. But if they're then having to get two other who are supposedly top talents, who are women's tag champions and the SmackDown women's champions, to do the job that she was doing, it's a big miss for me. Is that I think they're gonna really have to ramp up the women, like we've said. So what else has happened since we were last on? It's been officially confirmed that SummerSlam in Boston has been cancelled. Yet another victim of the COVID. So it will be live, in inverted commas, from the PC this time around again. So I think it was all systems go trying to get a live crowd in place for that. But
I was going to ask this question.
Go on.
So a bit of cross pollination in this. This week the Eagles have announced that they will play their games with no supporters. Other NFL teams are coming out saying we're going to have this capacity, that capacity, the other capacity. A couple of teams have said they're going to go at 50%, others have said they're going to go at 20%. For the ones that have said they're going to go at 50, you're looking 45,000 people still and stuff like that. It's crazy numbers. Is there any mention of the WWE getting people back in the building?
think they're on shaky ground with that on their previous record.
Yes.
So one thing I had read this week was that the mask policy for the people that are in attendance, like the trainees, and I know that they did have like friends and family in for a little bit in the audience, was there was no mask policy. They didn't have to wear a mask, but then apparently it's come about because Kevin Owens had basically refused to work unless they instigated something like that, and had to spell out the benefits of wearing a mask. I know that there will be those people that still won't want to wear them, but as was pointed out earlier on today, if Rey Mysterio can wrestle in the Royal Rumble for 62 minutes and still win whilst wearing a mask, you can wear one to go to Wembley.
There was a Kane one as well. A Kane one that I saw that was quite good.
Yeah, I did enjoy that when I saw that, but no, I suppose really because they are essentially the travelling circus, they're kind of at the mercy of the different state legislation as and where it would be. I don't really know what Boston's situation is, but I mean it can't be as bad as Florida where they are now, surely. Although it seems that America have taken a step backwards in the fight against COVID.
I've been listening to a couple of podcasts this week, and they're from a couple of weeks ago, where they were talking about America going back into lockdown. And they're saying like there was a statistic from last week saying like in the European countries, Germany had the highest daily count of cases with like 226 or something, compared to America's 50,000. And it was just saying, as a country, they are going backwards, and you've got all of these, the anti-vaxxers have been taken over by the anti-maskers. It's this, the people that refuse to wear masks and then go absolutely ballistic when they're challenged on it. It's, there's not a lot of hope in those situations.
It very much smacks of Second Amendment mentality, doesn't it? Can't tell me what to do because it told me elsewhere I have the right to do it. But that's definitely another story for another time. But with the COVID thing, though, it's like, what was the recorded deaths in this country in the end? Was it, well, not in the end because obviously it's still not finished, but there was a point a couple of weeks ago where I seem to remember like 40 odd thousand banded around.
We're about 45,000 now, plus however many extra for people who died at home and weren't officially thinking with coronavirus, which is the kind of, it's probably more like realistically around 60,000. So the problem is that it's the attitude of everything. Paul lad that is ready to grumble about just stop doing it. Then, obviously, the other week when there was the outbreak in the performance centre, they had like over 40 people, diagnosed with COVID. And then the thing that they most got upset about, not the fact that 40 people have fallen sick with this, potentially deadly illness, was the fact that Taz took, shot a promo on them. I'm like, just off. It's, he's saying the truth. AEW are testing people. You don't walk through the door. You see them and they've got 2 bands on to say that they're clear. They're wearing masks. You've got, and they go, oh, we can't believe Taz said that. We're really annoyed about that. Yeah, well, you've just had 40 odd people, being diagnosed with COVID. He's got every right to do that.
Well, it's saying about the was it what you said, Andy? Was it Germany that was it 200 odd cases? Was that in a week or in a day that you were saying about?
I think that was a day. The highest on that day.
Just to throw that into perspective,
I took a picture of it. In fact,
we're talking now about Florida. BBC News had quoted that they're averaging 10,000 cases a day.
That's insane.
And it's gonna. If they thought SummerSlam was going to be in front of a live paying audience, and that's the situation, I'd be surprised at this rate if it's before Christmas.
It's completely unrealistic when you've got the NBA in their bubble in Orlando. I know, MLS have got their bubble. Don't quite know where their bubble is. The NHL are doing something different. You've got obviously football over here, but throughout the world is being played, behind closed doors. And you're like, we might be able to get him in for SummerSlam. Like, no, it's just not going to happen. It's just.
So on Friday, I took a picture because I'd had this conversation previously, and then I'd seen it. It was a tweet, and then I'd seen it again later. So I took a picture of the tweet. So on Friday, somebody posted something that was from the Thursday, and it was a response to Donald Trump talking about Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden and other countries have opened the schools with no problems. So then the response is, new cases yesterday, Germany 298, Denmark 10, Norway 11, Sweden 57, United States 55,442.
I mean, put that into perspective of like the size of the countries. Yeah, fine, but add up the fact that you've reeled off half of a continent against that country to begin with. It's cracking. So, as we've said, there's going to be shows at the Performance Centre for some time to come, and this Sunday is no different. This time around, it's a little bit strange because we're coming up to Extreme Rules, but they've now added the tagline of the horror show at Extreme Rules. Again, after billing last time out as the greatest wrestling match ever, and then whilst it was good, not necessarily producing the greatest wrestling match ever, surely calling something the horror show is just opening you up to all kinds of shitty reviews after the weekend. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully, it'll be good. Again, hopefully, being the operative word. There'll be a few, if you've not seen the card as yet, there'll be a few things that we're about to talk about which may persuade you otherwise. So, it does seem that they're going to continue with a cinematic route once again, and a couple of matches are definitely going to have this in. But it's if they're going to build a horror show, it's only going to help. So, go on, Matt.
Do you want to put 30 seconds up?
I knew it.
Here we
I
go.
knew it was going to be this.
Are they on there? Have you got it?
3, 2, 1, go.
There can be too much of a good thing. Alright? There's some of the cinematic matches that they did, the Boneyard match, the Bray Wyatt John Cena match, even the Gargano Ciampa match was excellent cinematic. They're going too far with it now. I don't want a full pay-per-view of cinematic matches because they're just getting ridiculous. We've talked about it before. Some proper wrestling matches, please.
Oh, perfect. They're on point tonight.
I can't disagree with you. They can't do the full pay-per-view surely with like spots in like that because people are going to get like annoyed by it. Like, I know that to me wrestling has always been like the world's greatest variety show. There should be something for everybody, and if they do it all cinematic style, they're just pigeonholing it as, and it's supposed to be a sports presentation. Ultimately, that kind of veers as far away from that as possible to me.
I just think it's the Extreme Rules kind of pay-per-view was obviously came out of the back at ECW and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. And obviously with the PG kind of kiddie-friendly era, you can't do all those matches that they were doing before. Fine. But don't kind of, what Extreme Rules have we got this time? Well, one of you can only wear one sock or something like that. It's just
that's an entirely different pay-per-view video, Matthew.
At some point, they're going to have to go, right, either get rid of Extreme Rules or actually put some Extreme Rules in, because But the problem is they've taken Extreme Rules, what would be extreme kind of matches, and made pay-per-views out of them. So like Hell in a Cell, that should be an Extreme Rules match, or that should be an Extreme Rules pay-per-view, or tables, ladders, and chairs, or as things kind of come out and go. But it's just like, let's create some weird stipulation that makes it sound cool, but we can do it cinematic, and people will watch it and go, wow, shit, where was the extremeness in that kind of thing? And it's just handicap matches and stuff like that now, without any kind of real like risk, doesn't seem to be kind of worth it. Just I don't know. And then when it said Extreme Rules Horror Show, I was like, fuck this shit, it's gonna be it's just gonna be awful.
One thing that was very close to being my Ready to Grumble has been the advertising for it, because I felt like I couldn't go with it in the end fully, because last time around I mentioned the advertising when they were using that bloody song from The Greatest Showman. This time around, I think it's just been a little bit, and it's just enough. It's like every time they flick between the different match graphics with the Extreme Rules stuff in the background, there's a blood curdling scream, and it, like, as watching TV on an evening as a parent when your kids are asleep in a different room in the house, don't want to hear a small blood curdling scream every sort of 30 seconds, because you're always on edge. But as always, the matches I've got down are correct at time of recording. But I have got 2 rumoured matches, which I don't normally include, but there's such a strong chance of them happening that I've put them out there. And I thought this time around we can do a bonus point as well for if you predict if it's going to happen or not. So we shall see. I think there's a very good chance that these will happen. So as those are the rumours up to now, I will start with those. So last Friday, in amongst all the karaoke shenanigans that Matt was talking about earlier on, there was a tag team match on SmackDown between The New Day and Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro, which ended with like a no contest result basically, but Nakamura and Cesaro ended up putting New Day through the tables, so leads me to believe that there's a probable chance of there being a tables match at Extreme Rules for the SmackDown tag team titles between those 2 teams. Now obviously if the match does happen, I'm putting Andy straight down for a New Day win as always.
If it's not already written down, Stu, I'll be very disappointed. You know my opinion. They could be the greatest shower of shit to ever grace our screens.
So, on the premise, are you going? Do you think that match could happen, or are you going with it not happening?
Yes, I think it will happen, and the New Day can officially do one.
Okay, so you go Nakamura and Cesaro.
Absolutely.
Okay, Paul, does it happen?
They very rarely do things such as that don't get a payoff. So, yes, the match will happen. I was gonna pick Cesaro and Nakamura to win the titles, but then the New Day haven't got their their table spot back, have they? So still have the New Day to retain.
Okie dokie. Matt, does it happen?
Yeah.
And who have you got to win?
New Day.
Okay. For some reason I put New Day for you, so that's I'm also going with it happening, and unfortunately for you guys, I'm going to agree with Mr. Cook. I think we've got a title change coming, so I'm going Nakamura and Cesaro. So second on the rumoured match list, it's heavily rumoured there's going to be one of the cranky stipulation matches of a bar fight between recovering alcoholic Jeff Hardy and Sheamus. So you might remember last time around that one of us predicted Sheamus to win Backlash. Just saying, boy. And they're still going with it. I thought after that, that would have been the match that would have propelled one of those towards the world title picture, but apparently not. So they've done this whole thing, haven't they, with the drug testing, and Sheamus has had a piss pot thrown in his face, and that was in the build-up to last time around. Ultimately, everything is a throwback to sort of the demons of Jeff's past, and they had Hardy knocking out Sheamus in the Intercontinental title tournament way back. Sheamus then got that win back at Backlash. So really, in results base, I suppose this is the rubber match. So which way does it go, and does it take place? Paul, do you want to start this time?
Yes, I think it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen Tim White for a while, have we? I'm assuming he's just been able to get the friendly tap back on its back on its heel. So what better way to celebrate the reopening of the friendly tap than by absolutely destroying it? Yeah, I think we discussed this on the last time that you'd argue that the winner of this sort of feud would be the next in line to sort of go and face Strowman for the Universal title. Just for that reasoning, I'll take Sheamus to get the win, because you'd imagine they would want a heel to go up against Strowman for the belt.
Okie dokie. And Andy, is it going to happen?
It's a yes from me. And I'm picking Jeff Hardy for the win. I imagine if it's like all the demons and stuff going on, they'll make a big deal about him overcoming the demons and the match for the win.
Okay. I am also going with yes, it will happen, and both of the reasons I would have picked for both of those people to win said match have just been given, because I really can't pick at the moment. So I'm going to go with Hardy, just because I think Sheamus has probably got a few more years there, so they might sit on his title opportunity, whereas Hardy's probably closer to the end of his career. So that's the only reason I'm going for Jeff. Matt, will it happen?
Fortunately so. That's bad taste.
I
mean, like, yeah, don't sit on the fence about that one, though, will you? It's like,
tell us what you really think.
I've not liked this whole kind of storyline at all. I just think it's a bit gross. I don't know why they kind of. It's like just like one last stick the knife in Jeff Hardy kind of thing, you know. And I know he's made mistakes, and I know, but Jesus Christ, is he the only person there that's made mistakes? And has his mistakes been any more egregious than other people? You know. But yeah, so yeah, it'll happen, and Sheamus will probably win.
that's interesting that me and Andy have picked the same so far, and you and Paul have picked the same so far. So those are the matches that are at this point in the rumours. We may well even have points on the board before the pay-per-view kicks off at this rate, if things do get announced closer to the time. So the matches that are confirmed then, we mentioned Braun Strowman very briefly then, and it seems a bit of a strange place to start with the Universal title match, but why not link that together? So, oddly, not a title match. However, will be one of the cinematic matches, because it's going to be Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt in a Wyatt swamp fight match. I'm sure they'll say it for the first time ever, so we might as well throw that back in as well. So whilst targeting Braun in recent weeks, Bray's kind of regressed to his old Eater of Worlds, cult leader sort of character. Obviously, throwback to the start that Strowman had in WWE. Wyatt kind of looking to gain the upper hand with the whole psychology of all of that, but then Braun's the one that's actually challenged him to the swamp fight match. I thought, I could be very wrong, but I thought it was announced early doors that it was for the title, and now it's definitely non-title. It's confirmed on the website and everything, so that seems a bit strange if that was right. it might just be me that's been sleeping through SmackDown, because apparently the writers have been doing that too for the last few weeks. So, it feels very much like take shots at them night tonight, more so than normal. But yeah, it could be a nice little bow on the whole kind of chapter of Strowman and Wyatt. I just get the impression it's not going to be, because surely the end chapter has to be Strowman versus the Fiend. They can't have him. For me personally, I'm picking Strowman to win this, because I think Strowman will essentially defeat his old leader, but then ultimately come a cropper to the Fiend when it comes down to having the all of the dollars on the line, shall we say? So I'm picking Strowman. Andy?
So, you might need to add a little box for this one, Stu.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
So,
because it's a swamp fight, is it going to be some weird thing about the weapon that he uses to win the match with, or something?
I already know the weapon he's going to use. Alligator. Come on. Bray Wyatt to win. I would like an addition of, because he's helped out by Eric Rowan.
Okay. I am autocorrect trying to change that to Roman. Very different ending. That's an interesting point. I hadn't even thought about that. But is he one of the guys that was on the unemployment list a little while back, but nobody's mentioned?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
But nobody's talked about him. Obviously, we will be talking about one of the other unemployment line people shortly. But yeah, that could be a shout. That it's all been very quiet on that front. So speaking of Rowan, we'll go from one ginger to another, and we'll let Paul have next pick. Paul, where are you going with it?
This is another one of those just fire it under. I could not give any less of a fuck about this match.
Okay. Are you not even intrigued as to like how it'll go down though? Like what this match could actually be?
The second they said it was non-title, I was just like, well, why should I be bothered then? Why should I have any interest in it? Like, at least if it's for the title, you've got the intrigue of, is he going to cheat to win the title, or is he going to pull something out of the bag to win the title? But when there's no prize at the end of the road for him, it's just it seems a bit pointless to me. You'd imagine that Wyatt will win because it's his match. And you'd imagine there'll be some shenanigans with the puppets. They'll be involved in some form, shape, or fashion. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a strange one for me. Like I say, the second they said it was non-title, I had no interest.
I have put you down for Wyatt, so that leaves Matt then to round out the predictions for that one.
So I'll go. I think Strowman will win, because I think it's that kind of like defeated kind of the new kind of Bray Wyatt, defeat the old Bray Wyatt. But then, being as people are putting boxes, I reckon the Fiend will turn up at the end and kind of drag him into the swamp or something like that, to then set up SummerSlam against the Fiend.
Part of me wondered, seeing as they teased it for so many years, that would this be the time that they finally revealed an actual Sister Abigail?
That'd interest me. That'd sort of get my attention back a little bit. Something like that.
So now that we've said that'd be good, then it'll definitely not happen.
if there is some kind of like storyline and background to it, because obviously the Fiend is kind of like something that came from when they were writing ghost stories, weren't they? And having them read them. So Bray Wyatt had done this kind of ghost story kind of thing about the Fiend. And if it's like however many years back he'd done this kind of thing, and then obviously they brought the Fiend to life. So maybe, and obviously he said, Sister Abigail said the Fiend is you, in this kind of like horror ghost story thing that he told, and you kind of think, if there is some kind of Sister Abigail or something like that. It'll be interesting, because obviously, they love the cinematic stuff, so you can create it in the cinema.
Yep. So yeah, that rounds us out on that. So we have now started to get a little bit of variation between the predictions as well. So we'll go from a non-title to a shiny brand spanking title in the US title match between current champion Apollo Crews and MVP. So this has kind of come around because MVP has been trying to recruit Apollo Crews and has just been declined time after time. So now MVP's kind of just out to ruin him, basically. So anybody else thinking it's a little bit strange that they've introduced a brand new title belt, but the actual reigning champion hasn't touched it yet?
So it's obviously weird, yeah, because MVP's just been wandering around with it on, hasn't he, for a couple of episodes? Yep.
And obviously, as we saw earlier, and as you guys know, I am a bit of a belt guy, so it's a little bit. It was a bit strange at first. I wasn't that keen on it, and then it literally took about 6 hours to grow on me, and I completely changed my mind. It in terms of the actual quality of the belt itself, it's much bigger than the original one. But yeah, it was. I just find it odd that it was revealed on like the 6th of July, and the actual champion hasn't touched it yet. So they then put it out on the billing. So yeah, look at this brand new title, like 10mm thick plates and removable side plates like all the other championships. And guess what? It was available on the shop by the end of the episode. So it's strange, that, isn't it? So it is, as much as it is a nice new title, are we starting to see the old one go? Did we realise that the US title was actually the longest serving design at that point?
No, I didn't.
It's underrated for me because a lot of people crap on it, but at the end of the day, if you'd never seen wrestling before and you said, "Oh, this is a champion," what's it the champion? Who is the champion of? Then you'd know straight away. But
when you say the longest serving title,
the longest serving title design.
No, that's what I mean. Does that mean that? So that was in place for what? The better part of 18 years, was it? Or was it 2003 that they brought the US title?
2003.
So you got 17 years on that one. How long did they go between changing the tag belts?
Well, technically they'll get around that because it went to them copper penny tags, didn't it, first, around the time of the Shield, and then when they split them to Raw and SmackDown again, they got the same. Technically the same centre plates, but then different colourings on the strap, and they went from copper to silver, didn't they? So that's how they get around it.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to work out if that is the longest held continuous design as well. Be interesting to look at how long each design of each particular belt lasted for.
It's got to be up there for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, it's probably longer than any of the World Championship belts because they've all been less than double figures, I think.
Yeah, because instantly, everybody that's watched it, that's kind of my kind of era, everybody always remembers the big eagle belt or the winged eagle belt before that, and kind of that's all you have in mind. But when you look into the lifespan of them, they weren't very long at all.
Well, the big eagle only really had 4 years, didn't it? So
anyway, we could quite happily do a whole podcast on being a belt geek, but yeah, so we'll get back to the actual predicting. So, who is going to take the shiny new title? Will it be the current champion Apollo Crews? Matt, do you want to start us off on this one?
I'm going to go with a no contest with this one because I think Bobby Lashley's going to get involved, and then that's going to set up Apollo Crews against Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam. So I'm going to go like no contest / disqualification, something like that, but no kind of like.
Okay, so I'll put you down. I'll put you down for a no result win if you're going with that. Cool. Okay. Paul.
Again, it's probably the phrase that I'm known for the most. He's only just got it. Ironic that he hasn't actually got it, because he's only won it 3-4 weeks ago max.
Yep.
Too soon to take it off him. I mean, I'd like to know the last time they changed the design of a title and then immediately switched it without it being a tournament, say, for bringing it in. Other than the 24/7 belt, which was basically designed for that purpose.
And as well, changing it during a guy's reign when he hasn't then technically defended it yet as well. So obviously, like in terms of an immediate switch, obviously there was the spinner title way back when, on the WWE side of things, that got changed fairly quickly, didn't it? But he wasn't the champion at the time when that release had already been released. No, the main one, because he won the title from JBL, didn't he? Was that WrestleMania?
Yeah, so he won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 21.
Yeah.
And then he changed it for the spinner belt about a month or so later, and then kept that until that New Year's Revolution pay-per-view. That's the thing we forgot about, Rob. But technically, the US belt had a little change in the middle, right at the start.
Ah, yeah, that is true, actually. So, no, maybe that is wrong then. Maybe that is. It's still be the longest set. Anyway, that's again. We'll get away from that. So you go for Apollo Crews?
It's another one that it doesn't make any sense for him to take the belt off him so soon after him getting it, because it's just gonna. I mean, the shit's all over him anyway. So now that they've started stopping shitting on him, let's actually put some sort of creativity in.
They stopped shitting on him, but they released a new belt that he technically owns without him being there. And then the guy that's kind of challenging for it has wandered around with him for a couple of weeks. Poor guy can't catch a break.
Nah.
Andy, who are you picking?
I think MVP might take it.
Okay. And I will be agreeing with Mr. Cook. I have a feeling. I don't know what Andy's thoughts on picking MVP were necessarily, but like they're pushing Lashley. The last couple of weeks they've pushed Lashley and MVP as more of a stable, like rather than a manager and a wrestler. And this week particularly, I noticed they started coming out calling themselves the Hurt Business. They've also gone into a bit of a sub-story in trying to recruit Cedric Alexander. So my thoughts are that MVP for a time will have the US title. And in fairness, MVP is probably most well known for his time in WWE with the US title, so that kind of ties in. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's Cedric Alexander and Bobby Lashley end up with some kind of tag team where they've got the big muscle and then like the much skinnier high flyer. So that was my thoughts on picking MVP, because I think they might go for a little sort of like a power stable almost with those three. I'm gonna go to the women's matches next, and I'm going to say women's matches because I think they're going to tie together. So we've got the SmackDown women's title being defended by Bayley against Nikki Cross, and the Raw women's title being defended by Asuka against Sasha Banks. Now, for the casual viewer and eagle-eared amongst you, you might be wondering why Sasha Banks from SmackDown is carrying on challenging a Raw champion. seems a bit, but she's got one half of the tag team champions at the moment, and the challenge came about from them being able to travel between the shows. This kind of leads to why I've linked the two. So I'm just going to go all out with mine right from the beginning. I have a feeling that Sasha is going to help Bayley to retain against Nikki Cross. But then Bayley won't return the favour in terms of helping Sasha to win the Raw Women's title, and that's what's finally, to quote a phrase, going to be the thing that tips them two on a collision course against each other. So I think that'll be the first point. Then there'll be an argument during the women's tag title match, which will inevitably come in the next couple of weeks afterwards, and they'll do that. And then it's going to be all out Sasha, Bayley, SummerSlam for me. So again, cards on the table right from the off. Bayley will retain because let's stick Paul's catchphrase right in there, but then Asuka is also going to retain as well. Paul?
She's had it for a long time, hasn't she?
Bayley? Longest reigning SmackDown Women's Champion of all time, I believe. They're quite like Scottish champions, don't they? What you mean, because they've done it once?
God, they've got a few of them.
Or Piper was a fake Scotsman, so okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't even give him the main title either, would they?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I kind of agree with your sort of reckoning there. There's too much sort of good story in not having the payoff of the Bayley Sasha blow up thing. And you'd imagine that you would need the belt still there to get to that full explosion, implosion, whatever you want to class it. So sit me down for a similar on the Bayley will retain. You'd like to think it's too early in Asuka's run. I mean, like if you've had Becky that had the belt for over a year, you don't really want Asuka taking the belt and losing it within 6 to 8 weeks, because that just makes her look shit. So
especially after they essentially had to burn the Money in the Bank this year as well for the women.
I'm a little bit annoyed about that, because they obviously planned that in that manner, and it's just it does make them whenever. In fact, I think I said this at the time. I hate it when they waste one of the Money in the Bank contracts. So if they do it where they win it and then cash it in the same night, that's a complete waste of a year's worth of storyline there, because you lose the possibility of when they're going to cash it in. It loses that element of surprise, that element of like anything can happen sort of thing, which is like what keeps a lot of people tuning in.
Because Otis is going to turn up with a Bryant swamp.
He'll have a turkey leg in his hand or something, won't he?
Oh Christ!
Doing some stakes and weights in the shack in the middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah!
It's when he keeps going that gets me every time. He could do nothing else. He could genuinely do nothing else. As long as once an episode you just see him walking by in the background going that's fine with me.
Stick me down for both to retain.
Okay. Matt, where are you going on this one?
So it's So it's Bayley and Nikki Cross.
Yep.
And Asuka and Sasha Banks. I'm going to go Bayley to retain and Sasha to win.
So you think they're going to get all the gold?
I just think she's going to get. They're going to get all the gold, and then that's going to create the tension because obviously at the moment it's like Bailey's the champion and the tag champion, and therefore Sasha is the lower class citizen in that pairing. And obviously, if she has a championship and it's the Raw championship, that's the kind of one, as opposed to, and it's kind of like, well, actually, I'm the better champion now, and so then that will create the tension. So then, does it like lead to a possible loss of the tag championships, and then a costing of a championship or a champion versus champion kind of thing at SummerSlam? But I think they'll somehow create the tension by them both having the top prize.
I've just thought of something else based on what you've said, on the sense of, because of Charlotte being out for a while, as we mentioned earlier on, are they then going to drag out the Bailey and Sasha thing past SummerSlam so that becomes more of a Survivor Series time of year thing?
Jesus, it's like, at what point are they going to pull the trigger on this? Because we've been waiting 4 years now, and there's always a reason. There's always a reason not to. We can't do it because they needed this person to do that. Oh, we can't do it this time. Obviously, last year I'm fine with it because you had Becky Lynch and it was Ronda Rousey. But and that kind of took precedent over it, and it seemed daft to waste it in the past year. But now you've got the prime time where you've got no Charlotte, you've got no Becky. Sasha Banks looked. I mean, we talked about Great American Bash. Her match with that Io Shirai was insane. That was one of the best matches of the 2 nights. It was. I mean, Io Shirai is a star, but they both made each other look more than $1 million. And just think you've got to pull the trigger on it. Sometimes you can't be like, well, keep it, because ultimately, 5, 6, 7 years from when people first talked about it, people stopped giving a shit. And I think a lot of people are on the verge. I'm like, if they don't do it now, if they don't pull it off for SummerSlam, then I'm like, oh, fine, then just let's give up and kind of leave it, because
what if though? My thought process when you said about that was, so they give, because you know that they love a first time ever, and you know that they bloody love some sort of convoluted stipulation where like everything's a bit weird, which we'll get to in a second. What if Sasha does win? What if Bailey retains? So they have all 4 belts, but then they have some kind of weird tag team match, or even 3-team match at SummerSlam, whereby it's like a 2 out of 3 fall.
Like when Jericho got belts or lost those belts. But when it
was Angle, wasn't it? It was when It was Angle. Angle had the Intercontinental and the European, and then was it Benoit and Jericho that won each off him?
Yeah,
back when that kind of stuff. But obviously they've never done that with the women, and they certainly haven't done. Crap, spilt water everywhere. Certainly haven't done that with. Certainly haven't done that with the women's division. So, could they feasibly do that? Andy, we've gone in on the women's predictions. I feel like you've heard a good portion of the story. Do you just want to bosh the predictions? So, Bailey or Nikki for the SmackDown Women's title?
I think I've got a little something here. I think that Sasha is going to help Bailey.
Okay, so Bailey to retain.
In the hope that it's a you scratch my back, I scratch your back situation.
So you going Sasha to win the Okay. Right, so you are down for Bailey and Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
So, Andy, I think you should watch this little particular segment back when you get a chance, as you might be quite interested to hear what Stuart put as his predictions for this section.
Are we the same or opposite?
No,
Very similar, with a slightly different outcome.
The same reasoning with a different end result. So yeah.
Oh.
So we mentioned the fact that there could be the potential for some sort of hooky stipulation at SummerSlam. Let's get to the hookiest stipulation of all time. So in the last few weeks, there's been last few month and a bit, been a bit of beef, if you like, between Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins after Seth Rollins and his buddies, to quote a phrase, thank you Kevin Owens, carved Rey Mysterio's eye into the corner of the steel steps. Mysterio then returned to win a tag team match with Kevin Owens, which allowed him to pick a stipulation for this weekend's match with Rollins. Now, you can only assume that this is going to be another cinematic style, or have cinematic parts to it, and there are heavy rumours that the ending is going to have to be CGI on the basis they've absolutely booked themselves into a corner, because the match is an eye for an eye match, where the winner is the person that removes one of their opponent's eyeballs. What is going on?
The actual fuck is this?
Yeah. This is the horror show element. This will be the horror show at Extreme Rules.
It's going to be a horror show, alright.
Seems we're all in agreement there, boys.
Just right. Is anyone going to be sat there thinking, "Oh my God, they really love their craft. One of them has been willing to actually lose sight in one eye to further this storyline. This is amazing."
This is what pisses me off, because Cornette will be sat going, "Oh, I hate Orange Cassidy. Oh, look, he's making a mockery of what wrestling is." And then if you watched his match against Jericho last week, he can wrestle. He properly wrestle. It was a really good match.
Just take your hands out of your pockets, though. It's just stupid. It's just a stupid gimmick.
It's a gimmick. But on the flip side of that, we're going to have somebody have their eye ripped out. Now, you know, at this point, we might as well just call it all off, because that is worse than someone wrestling with his hands in his pockets.
Oh, big time, yeah.
You know, I would rather watch, you know, Orange Cassidy take the piss than watch someone have their eye ripped out. You know.
How exactly are they going to continue on past the point that I'm holding the laptop so I don't fall. So someone has their eye ripped out. How are they going to continue past that point? That person, you know, because it leans itself towards. Let's say, for example, it was Rey Mysterio loses his eye, and then comes back 3 weeks later with a bionic eye. It's going to be something ridiculous, like, oh yeah, we've spared no expense, and we've got him the first ever bionic eye.
The Buried Alive matches, you know, you think back to like the 80s and 90s with the Buried Alive and all that kind of matches. You know, you kind of, oh god, they're buried alive, but you kind of think, well, yeah, there's some kind of logistical reason as to how you can get around that. Physically ripping somebody's eye out of their head, you can't. There's no turning back from that one. You know, so either this is a Rey Mysterio retirement match, or something really fucking weird's going to go on with Seth for a bit. He's gone on long-term paternity leave to get his eye fixed again.
They're finally going to ramp up the pirate gimmick that they missed at WrestleMania with it being cancelled. They're going to bring him back with a patch.
Yeah.
No, I have a theory on this, but I mean, Bin as we're in the PG era still, surely having somebody's eye ripped out is going to be a little bit hard to see.
Yeah.
I'll just leave that there. I'm going to go in for it. So I think Seth Rollins is going to win. Mainly because the guy then having his eye ripped out wears a mask.
Well, did you see this when he announced the match and stuff like that? He had the half, he had the one side covered anyway, didn't he? So
he had like a letter from the eye that was attacked previously. He already had like a lens.
Oh, guess what though, folks? You can now buy those on WWE.com's the store.
The half and half Rey Mysterio mask where one side is like sunglasses and the other side isn't.
Just the patch to stick over your eye.
Oh my
Sure
and just think, like what they'll do as well after the pay-per-view on Sunday, within hours of it finishing, you'll be able to buy either a Rey Mysterio mask with blood trickling out of one side, or some sort of Seth Rollins eye scoop thing that I don't fucking know.
Surely it'll be straight on WWE auction where you'll just be able to buy the detached retina.
Yeah. The eye in a presentation mask. In a presentation
Well, Vinnie Mac never misses a marketing opportunity, does he? So no, I am going with Rollins, purely for the fact that they have hidden an eyeball for the last 2 or 3 weeks on TV anyway. You haven't seen that eye, so essentially if that eye then gets ripped out, they've already kind of got the cover for it, because I can't see it being Rey Mysterio's retirement match, because the way things are going, surely it's going to be Dominic that does that.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what Eddie Guerrero's paternity lawyers would have to say about the whole situation still these days, but it's going to happen. We are talking about this like it is the strangest stipulation ever, on the basis that, let's not forget that they gave away the custody of a child in a ladder match years back. So.
No. Perfectly logistical. That happens all the time in Mexico, so,
Well, this we were talking before about Heyman being gone and it being Vince McMahon back. I'm not sure if we've got the wrong Vince, because it feels all a little bit Russo at the moment, doesn't it? It really does.
Could you imagine at the end of rips the mask off? Be all on, guys. Oh, yeah.
So, who are you going to go with to win, Matt?
I'm going to go Rollins. I just think, it's going to be that. Like you said, you can't. There's no explaining him. He doesn't wear a mask. You can't hide it behind a mask. You can't kind of do something weird or something like that with him. That he is what he is. So Mysterio, he can hide it behind a very nice mask.
Okay, and Andy.
You touched on something that I was going to say about this. I think that Dominic's going to come in and help out. I'm going for Rey Mysterio, but I somehow think they're going to end the match with no one losing an eye, even though it's heavily set up that they could easily just go, Rey Mysterio lost an eye, let's move on. I think that there's going to be some kind of, it doesn't go quite that way. But I think Dominic's coming down for this one.
Okay. And Paul?
Yeah, I'd agree in that. You'd imagine there'll be some outside interference on both sides. You'll get the disciples. Yeah. They'll get involved in some way, and then obviously that'll bring, you'd imagine, Dominic out. I was originally going to say that this was potentially where you'd build the Dominic turn, but I think I've said that every time Mysterio's had a match for the last 6 months, and it's not really paid out. So do I just stick to my guns and say it every time until it happens, so that I definitely get it right at some point? I don't.
It happens eventually. If
Exactly.
It'll happen eventually, Randy. Yeah.
But you'd like Stu said, obviously, you'd imagine that's going to be the payoff. Is that like the guy who retires Mysterio will be Dominic, and you'd probably think that if they're going to try and pull that off, they'd try and pull that off at a WrestleMania, not at a SummerSlam. So maybe it's a bit too early to sort of pull the trigger on that one at this point now. And just for the sheer logistics of it, you'd imagine that if they are going to go through with the stipulation of you have to physically rip someone's fucking eyeball out of their head to win it, it's a lot easier for Rey Mysterio to hide a fucking eyeball in his mask than it is for Seth Rollins to pull one out of his fucking skin tight lycra shorts. They just do that. So yeah, step me down for a Seth win.
I'm going down for Seth Rollins. Okay. One thing that we've not mentioned actually in the build-up to that is that this is the storyline where Aleister Black's been lurking in the background and he's kind of faded, for want of a better pun. But the only way that I don't know, like you say, I don't know if Dominic will turn this early. If there's a turn coming, I think it'll be Aleister Black joining forces with Rollins, because they kind of kept him on the down low for a little bit, but we shall see. I'm not going to stick that in. I'm still going for a straight Rollins win. I won't fish for any extra point. Which leads us to our final prediction of the evening, the main event, WWE title match between Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. Now, this is another match where it's actually like the Strowman Wyatt match, where it's been built off a fairly long history between the two. And a couple of weeks back, we actually got an interesting cameo as well from the recently fired Heath Slater. Dolph has arrived on Raw as part of a trade from AJ Styles even going the other way to SmackDown. But Dolph's immediately targeted his former championship winning tag team partner. So there was a bit of a heated promo 3 weeks ago now, possibly, between McIntyre and Ziggler, and McIntyre just lost it, basically said, I don't care what it is, you pick it, you pick the rules. So Ziggler's now decided to keep that close to his chest until the night of the pay-per-view itself. Unless you believe some leaked advertising. Now, there is another rumour floating around that this could be, and Matt picked up on this earlier on, a TLC match between the two. Whether or not that's been leaked and they then have refilmed it just because that's how they are, we'll yet to see. But I'm not going to go for picking a stipulation, but that is the kind of heavy rumour that I've seen going around at the moment. So, Andy, do you want to lead us off on this? Is McIntyre keeping that WWE Championship, or is it going to go to Mr. Dolph Ziggler?
I think because it was such a big thing for him to win it when he did, it still probably feels a little too soon for him to lose it. And in some ways this doesn't feel like a big enough match for him to lose it at. It feels like it needs to be like a bigger stage because of how big it was when he won. So I'm going for a retain on this one.
Okay, we've got you now for Drew. Paul?
Yeah, I'm in a similar sort of vein on that one. If I'm being honest, when I first saw that they were having the match, I kind of was like, why don't they just put them two together? They don't have any sort of backstory, because I'd literally completely forgotten that when McIntyre re-debuted on Raw, it was Ziggler that brought him up, wasn't it? As his muscle.
Yep. Yep.
So I'd completely forgotten about that. Yeah, unfortunately for Ziggler, he's always that sort of guy that he's the sort of like the utility player, and he's the guy they sort of slot in when they need someone to put together like a decent match. And whilst I certainly wouldn't be against the idea of him getting another run with the championship, I don't think it's happening at this particular time. It's just what what does this set up moving forward? It just seems like I know they've got a history. I know they've got a bit of history and stuff like that, but this just feels like another one of those sort of throwaway matches for me. It's like a case of we've got to do something so that he's defended the belt within 30 days or whatever that stipulation that they put on themselves and stuff, so that he doesn't get stripped of it
when it suits.
It just feels like a bit of a nonsense match, really.
It's the one that the rule that they bring in when they need to get a title off somebody that's decided to go home for their own health and safety.
Yeah.
Shout out Sami Zayn. So you go for Drew then, yeah?
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, Drew as well. I don't know, like you said, Dolph's the excellent worker that gets a great match out of it, but we all go home going, maybe next time. It's just, I just think Drew McIntyre's going to lose it. He's either going to lose it to somebody. I suppose I'm about to say he's going to lose it to somebody weird, and then Dolph Ziggler would be kind of in that category.
Yeah.
But yeah, just something. I don't know. I think it's just going to be something a bit more. I think when he loses it for the first time, it's going to be in a kind of way that turns him into like a mega face. So it's going to be like a real kind of dodgy loss. Someone screws him really kind of badly for it, and then he's going to have to chase it to get it back. And I just don't think Ziggler's not got a stablemate or something like that. Unless they're pulling a Drake Maverick with Heath Slater and something like that goes on, but I just can't see it. Not at this pay per view. It's not a. Obviously, like the problems are that we keep on saying it. How many people are watching at the moment? How many people are going to watch this pay per view for him to drop the title to someone like Ziggler or something like that? So yeah, Drew McIntyre.
Okay. Yeah, I've got you down for Drew. I'm also going for Drew just to round out the predictions. I have again seen some very strange fan theories over the last week or so. None stranger than the potential return of Mr. Money in the Bank Otis, and basically Ziggler winning from McIntyre and then an Otis cash-in on Ziggler.
Oh yeah, I had seen that one. Yeah,
a bit of an odd one, but I mean they're not adverse to a convoluted kind of way around things, but I can't see that one. So yeah,
good. I'd like that.
But then that would bring Otis from SmackDown to Raw as well. So there's the whole. I don't know. It just feels like there's a bit too much to get past on that. So yeah, I'm sticking with Drew. I've been very impressed with his whole run at the moment. I feel like you said, Paul, about Ziggler is that utility guy. He's got a good match in him. Even though it's not been for a long time, they will mention the fact that he is a former world champion, so they'll build up his credentials, and it just makes it another kind of solid notch on the belt for Drew. I think it's he's been a constant, hasn't he? He's not. Ziggler's one of them people who's very rarely injured, very rarely get a bad match from, and it's just, like I say, a solid one on the resume, if you like. So that brings us to the end of the predictions for the horror show at Extreme Rules. I suppose you'll have to tune in next time to see who has had the horror show when it comes to the predictions. As per usual, obviously, leave us your comments below if you want to get involved in the predictions. Feel free to leave us a comment, drop us a message. Has anyone got any other business for tonight? Anyone want to see anything pop up they want to get in? No, we're all good, right? Well, thank you very much, gents. What was that, Matt?
I had something and I've completely forgotten what it was.
You'll remember it the second we start, won't you? So, but yeah, thanks, gents, for joining us, and enjoy the weekend, enjoy the festivities, and try not to pull your eye out over the weekend. Yeah, I suppose it's one of the ones where you can keep an eye out for the results. Andy, you need to cut us off. The dad jokes are coming.
I should have had it cut halfway through that sentence. Right. Thank you very much.
Put it off like the diseased eye that it's become.
I'm ending this.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
So there you go. What do you think to that? The predictions are in, and we have a new champion for the predictions championship belt. Well, congratulations to Stu for being the current champion. I'm sure your reign will not last. YouTube watchers, do subscribe, like, share, click for notifications. Let other people know. Podcasts grow through the word of mouth. So even if you tell one person, that's one more person. Everybody jump over to thecookiecast.com. Check us out over there. Send us some love, whether it's social media or email. We appreciate all the love we can get. So that's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye.